Hello and welcome to the Wonder Women series of the Maker Mom podcast. My name is Katie Freeman and I am your host. Every week I bring you interviews of two female or non-binary makers of all kinds, some of them parents, some of them not. This week's Wonder Women series episode is with Sarah of Sarah.Sawdust. Sarah makes just absolutely beautiful wooden landscape art pieces that are huge, quite a lot of them are big wall art pieces. And so it's really interesting learning about, how she got started doing it and her process for making them. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview for sure. But before we get to that, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to the patrons over on Patreon. So thanks so much, Kevin, Lefty's Woodshop, Christy, Twisted Twine, Christina B, Jeremy Speece, Sammy, Go Sammy Lee, Lauren, Rasp File Designs, Sven, Dwarf Size Workshop, Rachel, Moody Makes, Bonnie, Tool Mom Bonnie, toolmomstore.com, Laura, Oakley Soap Company, Mary Lou, Made by Mary Lou, Amy, Bison Valley Carving, Dan and Kelly, Reclaim Living Store, Brandy, Studio Obey, Kathy, One Girl and Her Tools, Ellen, Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you all so very much for your continued and ongoing support, helping me to produce 2 podcast episodes a week, every week. And with no further ado, here is Sarah of Sawdust, Sarah.Sawdust. Well, the first part of that will be introducing yourself, since I have guests introduce themselves. So I'll say when you're ready, you can feel free to go ahead and do that.
Okay. My name is Sarah Barnes. My handle on Instagram is Sarah Sawdust. I've been woodworking for about 3 years now. I do mostly art pieces. I've done some small furniture, but mostly art pieces. Okay. My background in it is my dad was a carpenter growing up, and he worked in construction. And so in the summers and on holidays and stuff, I worked with him. So I worked construction for probably 3 or 4 summers, I guess, as a teenager. And so got to know power tools a little bit. And then, went through life kind of never knowing what I wanted to be when I grew up, and fell into this because it was something that I knew I wanted to be an artist from a really young age, but just didn't know exactly how I was going to pursue that. I was taught as a kid, like I remember telling my parents when I was really young, like coloring with crayons and saying I wanted to be an artist when I grew up. And my dad saying, "Oh no, you don't want to be an artist. You can't make any money doing that." So it's kind of like my life took this path where I was trying to, do the right thing and go to college to be in business, and hated all my courses and, so ended up serving tables for a really long time and trying to figure out, like I said, what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then finally just decided to take the chance on this, and it's so far kind of working out. So.
Awesome. So you do it full time then?
I do now. Yeah, I'm really, really fortunate. My husband has been super supportive of it. He's an artist himself. He does graphic design and web design, but he also does painting and murals. And so when he found out that this was something that I kind of was passionate about, we started setting up a shop in our old house, and he's been super supportive. And we got ourselves to a place where we were all out of debt, and he said, "Okay, go for it." And so, I'm really fortunate that he's been super supportive in that way. But.
That's awesome that you get to take a full-time chance on your dream.
Yeah.
Did you start out like, did you start doing some of it kind of on the side before you
Yeah, for sure.
jumped
The
in?
first couple of years, so it actually came about kind of funny. Like I was following some woodworkers on Instagram and I was like, I could do that, just thinking like some of the small like geometric pieces and stuff. I was like, I could do that. And I had a table saw and I had a miter saw that my dad had given me. And so the first project that I ever made was actually a gift that I gave my brother for his birthday. And I posted a picture of it on Instagram, and my cousin got a hold of me right away and she's like, my son wants that same exact thing in our house. I'll pay you for it, And so she paid me for that project. And then I had another person reach out and say, hey, do you want to do a mountain piece for me? And, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And I got to a point where I was like, wow, I think I can actually make a little bit of money at this. And I did always consider it, I considered it a side gig for a really long time while I was still serving tables and bartending. But yeah, like I said, I got to that point and my husband was like, all right, let's go for it. So here we are.
Awesome. So, I mean, do you still continue to focus then like on kind of like the geometric design type pieces?
I do a little bit of both, but most of my projects, pretty much all of my projects actually have been commission pieces. So the majority of them have been people requesting landscapes or like mountains. The very first mountain project I did, I had a friend ask me to do the Tetons for, but she just wanted like the straight angle, like that's what her request was initially. And I knew that a lot of people were doing pieces like that. So I didn't want to mimic other people's work. And so I decided to get a scroll saw and just change, like I just wanted to change the top. And so I did that. And then once I put that out there, people were like, oh, cool. Like, can you do this mountain for me? And so the majority of the work I've done has been mountain pieces, but I really like doing the geometric stuff too.
Okay. So, I mean, do people request then, like your friend, like specific mountains to do?
Almost always people have an idea in mind. I've had a couple clients say, take artistic freedom, but for the most part, people know what they want. And then a lot of them actually will send me like a picture or like a memory that they have, and they want me to mimic that picture. And so I'll take that picture and kind of turn it into an art piece.
What's your process to do that? To transfer like a picture into like a wooden art piece?
It's changed. It keeps changing. I feel like I'm finally at a place where I got a little bit of what my process is. I actually have a piece behind me. Maybe I can kind of show you.
Yeah.
So I take the photo that they give me and I work with a local print shop and I have them blow the image up. And then I take the image and I trace out the pieces that I want to cut to put the image together. And I take carbon paper and place the wood down, place the carbon paper, and then trace over those images, number them, and then put them together, cut them out and then put them together as a puzzle, do all the sanding and yeah.
So a lot of scroll saw work.
A ton of scroll saw work and a ton of sanding. Yeah.
When did you get the scroll saw?
So the scroll saw, my first scroll saw that I got, I bought just a Ryobi scroll saw. Sorry, Ryobi. I like your tools. I hated that scroll saw. But it was that first mountain piece that I ever did. So that's got to be going on 2.5 years ago. I want to say 2.5, 3 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had practice with other power tools. What was like, I mean, scroll saws are kind of a different animal.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It definitely took a little bit of like that first mountain piece. It wasn't really large, but it took me a long time to figure it out. I was also cutting everything into thin strips because at that point I was working with old fencing and barn wood. I would just go on Craigslist and get the wood for free. And then, I got a planer I got this like great deal. There's a local store here that does DeWalt days, and they took like, I went in and talked to one of the reps and they took like $300 off for me. And so I got a really great deal on a planer, and then I was just taking fencing and barnwood and throwing it through the planer. And actually on that first project, I don't even think I had the planer yet, now that I think about it. But yeah, I was cutting them into strips and then doing kind of the like angular mountains, but then cutting the tops off to be a mountain shape, like a more organic mountain shape. But yeah. So the scroll saw has definitely been a learning curve. I've got a new DeWalt, or not a new one. I got it off of Craigslist, but I got a DeWalt scroll saw that has changed it for me. That Ryobi just like jittered so much.
Yeah, the vibration crazy. Of it. Yeah. I have a Craftsman scroll saw, and it does the same thing. Enough to like, I mean, that's never necessarily been my jam. Scroll saws and getting into. I'm always trying to do like super detailed work with it. And I think that's my problem because I have like no experience. And so it's just like trying to do detailed work, maybe above my skill level at the time. But yeah.
I feel like I'm still trying to do stuff above my skill level sometimes. Like, I don't even know. I've had to like change out the blades that I use and kind of figure it out. With the mountain pieces, I actually use a spiral blade, which I know a lot of people don't use those. They use just the straight blades, but I don't know how to turn the corners as efficiently as some people do. And I'm still working on it. I practice with it, but yeah. Yeah,
I want to try out one of those spiral blades because of that. Like the same thing, I suck at doing like corners whatsoever. Or just like like tight radiuses. That's where it's like I'll always end up cutting off something that I did not want to cut off. So you started with just the tops, and now it sounds like you're doing like all of it scroll saw pretty much.
Yeah, for the most part, the scroll saw is my most used tool. I mean, I use everything in my shop, but my scroll saw. But fortunately, I really like it. That's kind of my scroll saw days, my sanding days. I'm one of those crazy people that kind of likes the sanding because I'll just put a podcast on it. You know, it's a tool that you're not going to hurt yourself with. So, well, maybe not too badly, but I can just put my podcasts on or listen to music, and it's like when I do my deep thinking, and I'll journal a little bit sometimes while I'm working, and I think that it's been good for me to process some stuff, and
Are you doing it all with orbital sander or like?
No, I have benchtop sanders.
Okay.
One of just the benchtop sanders, and then my husband just bought me a spindle sander for Christmas, so I'll be using that as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say it'd be pretty crazy to do it all with an orbital sander.
Yeah. Originally, before I had this benchtop sander, I was hand sanding everything. I did there's one piece that I did that's a really big geometric piece that I did for the front of a kitchen island for a friend of mine, and I hand sanded the whole thing. I think it was like, God, it had to have been 15 plus hours of sanding. It's ridiculous. It looked good, but oh my gosh.
Yeah, that is one thing that I pretty much will avoid at all costs, if possible, is hand sanding. Yeah. But I am definitely one of the people that falls into the camp of sanding is not my favorite thing to do. Though I think I'm starting to realize a lot of it has to do with I struggle to find tools with like the right sized grips to hold. Yeah. And so it's I don't like it because I struggle with tennis elbow, and so after a while I'm just sore. It's not necessarily the process of sanding that is bothersome, because I think there's a meditative kind of thing about it, but when you end up sore afterwards, it's never fun to do.
More and more. My elbow has never bothered me until like the last 6 months. I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But use Tiger Balm every night. Tiger Balm on the elbow, it helps.
Hi makers, today's episode is brought to you by toolmomstore.com. Tool Mom and Company is for all ages, genders. They have what you need for your one-stop tool-related merchandise of gifts and clothing. The products are fun, fashionable, one of a kind. In fact, I have two of the mugs. One has a circular saw with flames coming off of it. It says "Go Girl." Another one has the definition of a tool chick. Both of them are super awesome, and I have coffee out of them almost every morning. So check out toolmomstore.com or find them on Instagram at toolmombonnie. You can receive an extra 20% off at checkout by using the code MAKERMOM. So it looks like I'm looking at your space behind you. Is your shop a basement shop?
It's not actually, it's out in the garage. I'll try to show you a little bit here. So this is, so we bought this house at the end of October, or excuse me, the end of September. So that's my space, but it's connected to the garage. But the people that owned this house before, the husband did woodworking and metalwork in here. So he added this shop on, which is one of the reasons that we bought the house. It was like, babe, we've got to get this house. Shop is awesome. He's the one who added the wood stove, which is a game changer for the winter. I was so cold in my other shop. I just had these two little electric heaters trying to keep warm, but this is amazing. I feel incredibly fortunate.
Yeah, I'd probably do the same thing if I found a house with a shop like that. I'd be like, yes, that's what we need to buy. So when you started getting into it as something as an outlet, if you were interested in art, where'd the combo come from, like wood and art?
Well, like I said, my dad was a carpenter, so I had some power tools that he had given me. In the past, I've built, I had built little coffee tables, and I had built bookshelves just out of needing them, and not wanting to buy them. I built a bed at one point out of all barnwood. It was actually turned out, it looked good, but it was kind of terrible because I didn't sand it down at all, and so the sheets wouldn't stick to and get splinters in them. It's kind of a disaster, but it worked, and it was very heavy duty. But I had done a little bit of that, and like I said, I was following a couple woodworkers. The first woodworker that I since I wanted an iPhone. Did you freeze up?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. But you froze up for me, and it's my internet connection that's the problem. But you froze up for me, right? You said the first person you followed, and then you froze. So I didn't hear anything after that.
Okay. So the first woodworker that I ever followed was Ariel Alasco. And she's I think she was one of the first to post some of that geometric type woodwork online. And I looked at her work, and I just loved it, was super drawn to it. And I thought, I could do something like that. And I thought about it probably for 6 years before I really tried it and, made that piece for my brother. But I'm one of those people that tends to have the idea but lacks the confidence to get it done, sometimes, or I can talk myself out of it. But
Why, like, but if you had all this experience with power tools, like, what was holding you back, do you think, confidence wise?
I think it's kind of that voice in the back of my head, like I need to be responsible and do something that's going to make money. You know, you kind of,
Mm.
when you're younger, especially your um, self-worth and value is kind of wrapped up in that societal view of you got to make money and
Mm-hmm.
you got to be, that's what you provide, you know. And instead of having like I wasn't, my parents were poor when I was younger. And so I think that they just really wanted me to go down that path and, you know, have a better life than what they had. And um, just not struggle financially. And so that's kind of how they coached me. And pursuing art was not, you know, that, you know, it just didn't encompass that mentality
Mm-hmm.
at all. And so I just was never told, pursue your passion and the money will come. You know, I had to hear that a lot before I ever gained the confidence to try, you know,
Mm-hmm.
try to do that. But I mean, I ended up serving tables. So I was like, I'm not doing that anyways, but I'm
Right.
still stuck in this. And serving tables, like, I don't want to badmouth it by any means. It is a profession that's definitely not taken serious, especially in the States. But it was really good for me. I was really shy as a kid and really socially awkward. And so having to talk to strangers all the time was actually really good for me. And I met a lot of really wonderful people through that experience, and yeah, came out of my shell and kind of came into my own through doing that. So I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
take it back. But
Mm-hmm. When you were like a kid and stuff, and still, being told not to go necessarily down the route of being an artist, did you still like did you take art class and stuff throughout school?
I did. I took a couple. I took an art class in high school, I remember, and played sports. And I think that that teacher at that time, it was in the 90s, looked at it as like there's the artsy kids and there's the athletes in the sport. And there wasn't really like a cross, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that at that time the mentality was, especially I grew up in a small town. In that small town, there wasn't a mentality of like, yeah, you can be both or do both. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that he definitely didn't take me serious. And so um, he didn't really encourage you know, I could see with some students, he was really encouraging and really like trying to help them along because he knew that that's what they were going to do. And he didn't think that of me. And so I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I felt discouraged by taking that
Mm-hmm.
class to more than anything, which was kind of unfortunate, but you know, life takes you on whatever journey it's going to take you, right?
Mm-hmm. Did you, I mean, have you had practices, creative practices or art practices, before combining it with the woodworking? Um,
Um, I mean, I think I've dabbled a lot. Um, like I tried drawing for a while. I'm not good at drawing. I've painted, but like I liked it. I liked painting, but it really didn't do it for me. You know, I was still,
mm-hmm.
I feel like I was always kind of searching, but also just in the back of my mind, I just think that I was always like, I had anxiety about even doing that. I don't know why, because I've always had this mentality, like, what are you going to do with your life? You need to figure it out. And like, I was trying to choose a career, you know, like it
Right.
just, I just didn't think about it that way. But I mean, I feel like I've always been fairly artistic. My mom has definitely told me that have been artistic always. Like I like to do hair and makeup, and I liked to do, you know, for a long time. And then I knew I didn't want to do that. I thought about being a hairdresser for a while, and I was like, nah. I thought about doing like makeup for weddings, and then I was like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to do that. And you know, I just couldn't choose what I was really passionate about until honestly, like Instagram. It just, you know, Instagram, like social media, open up all these like yeah, just open up all these like avenues. You can see what all these other people are doing with it, and
Mm-hmm.
with the woodwork, I was like, I know how to use power tools, and that is really cool. And so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
kind of how I fell into it.
What's what are the conversations like now that this is your full-time thing? I mean, it sounds like your parents wouldn't necessarily be surprised, but um,
Yeah.
what are those conversations like?
Well, I think originally, like especially when I first quit my job, I think both my parents were like, "Ooh, like, are you sure?" But yeah, I think it took them a little while to take it serious. My dad is definitely on board now. I think it feels good to him to have one of his children kind of following in his footsteps. I think that, so he takes pride in that. He's been really supportive. He bought me a bandsaw. I promised him a project, which I'll get to at some point. But yeah, he's been really supportive. I think my mom is still struggling a little bit to take it serious, but I mean, yeah, it is what it is, I suppose. But the more the business grows and the busier I get,
Mm-hmm.
that will all come. But
Is it? I mean, do you think there was a level of confidence growth in being able to do it because of like your husband's an artist as well?
oh, for sure, definitely. He was, like I said, he's the first person who really encouraged it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he showed me that he just does it. Like he's one of those people that when he says he's going to do something, he's out there the next day and he's doing it. And he doesn't. Whereas for me, I'm like, oh, I think I want to do this, and then like a week and a half later, he'd be like, so do it.
Yeah.
What's holding you back? And
Right.
he like I've talked through. I deal with anxiety quite a bit, and he's been really helpful in that way. He's like, you just start and you figure it out, and and go from there. And yeah, it's just been, that's the hardest part for me, is just starting. And then once I get started, then everything kind of falls into place. And he is, I really do. I give my husband a lot of credit. He is the first person to really encourage it, and to take me serious. So.
Mm-hmm. I, feel free to tell me you don't want to share, but I do. I find quite a few, especially female makers who, deal with or struggle with anxiety or depression, and like woodworking or making in general just really helps them
Mm-hmm.
with that. So do you mind sharing like how you feel it kind of helps you personally work through some of that?
So yeah, like I said, for me, it is kind of like a meditative, deep thought sort of thing for me. I'm in my space where I'm super comfortable. I'm a homebody, anyways, and it just allows me time to be introspective and to kind of reflect on, okay, this has been bothering me. This has been like a holdup for this long in my life. What is that about? And so I've been listening to a ton of podcasts and a ton of I listen to Brene Brown a lot. She's like changed my life. I found her through Anne of, oh my gosh, Anne.
Anne of all trades, or
yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
I can't believe I couldn't remember that. That's the nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anne of all trades had a post that she posted about Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, and I immediately bought the book and read it, and was like, oh my gosh, that is such she just languaged all the stuff that I've been feeling but couldn't quite process and couldn't quite figure out. And yeah, it's changed my world. So I listened to her a lot. And so honestly, yeah, it's been kind of a therapeutic thing for me. I like I said too, I write and journal. I'll have thoughts or have kind of aha moments while I'm listening to a podcast, and then I'll just write about it and write it down. And I think the release of writing about it helps a lot too. Just to put it down on paper and to put it into words, to language it, is really important. And yeah, I had some kind of strange traumas in my life, which I didn't really ever take into consideration and into why I have anxiety. But yeah, I've just started kind of processing a lot of that stuff recently. I think I'm 39. it's kind of late to be processing, but I think in your late 30s is kind of when you start really wanting to figure all that stuff out instead of running from it and avoiding it and just want to be better. But.
I'm 39 as well, so I totally relate to that. We'll be 40 this year, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. When's your birthday?
September 19th. And
really? Mine's the 10th.
Yeah. Well, Anne of all trades and I share the same birthday, September 19th.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and 10th. Yeah. September birthdays are the best. That's my personal belief.
Oh, disagree.
Yeah. Hey, makers. I want to tell you a little bit about today's episode's sponsor, Athena Outfitters. So when I'm in the market for a new pair of work boots, I do a ton of research, make sure I'm getting something that's going to fit right and going to last. Well, Athena Outfitters is a quality workwear brand for hardworking women that has a tons of experience with footwear. They've taken the time to select the very best shoes and boots made by each of the most reliable footwear brands. And when I shop at Athena Outfitters' site, it saves me time and energy because I trust that they found the best shoes for every job and activity. Plus bonus, you can shop online. So next time you need new work boots or some other type of high-performance shoe, check out AthenaOutfitters.com, gear with grit. And Athena is Athena, and then Outfitters.com. You can also get a special discount at checkout by using the coupon code MM, that's capital M 15 for 15% off any purchase just because you're a listener of the podcast. All right, let's hop back into the episode. I guess, like, I totally agree, and I applaud you for being able to listen to Brene, like, on the regular, because I have to take breaks from her, because I say she, like, destroys me sometimes in the sense of, like, I didn't want to think about that, and now I have to think about that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to your work, you talked about you do mostly commission pieces. Do you make ever just for you?
Not for a while. I haven't. I have ideas and like I have some sketches that I do. I'm not tech savvy at all, so I don't know how to use the computer very well. But I've done some sketches that are for me, and I've done some small pieces. Like I did some wood burning pieces that I really like that I just gave away. Like I gave my dad something for Father's Day, but that stuff is just, again, like really meditative to be able to do. But I have a list of clients that are waiting on commissions right now. So I'm trying to just focus in on getting all of those commissions done because it is also, like I'm committed to trying to make a little money for,
right.
My husband has been so supportive of this. So yeah.
Does that ever, I've had others talk that like they'll shy away from making it a full-time gig just because the fear of like it not, when you turn it into a job, is it as enjoyable? Have you found that to be true for yourself, or like is there any extra level, I guess, of like?
So I think that's kind of funny. I hadn't really considered that. I've been doing it for money the entire time. Like I never really, like I made the one piece that I gave my brother, which was really nice, but everything else I have sold. So it's just been a part of it from the get-go for me. It definitely adds another level of stress to like have a deadline, but I also work a lot better under pressure than I do. Like if it's just up to me to manage my time, I'm not great at it. I have to admit that. So it's actually better for me to have deadlines and to have, somebody that I'm accountable to get the projects done. If I were just doing it for me, I think that I mean, I would definitely do pieces, and I'm not one of those people that starts something and doesn't finish it, but yeah, I think
get
it's
it. I get it. Though I even find myself where if I am making a piece for somebody and have a deadline, I struggle with that deadline as well. Um, so how do you manage deadlines and such? Because I'm imagining when people are reaching out for a commissioned piece, like they're probably they might have input on when they want it, but they're probably also asking like, when can you have it done and that type of stuff. So how do you schedule out your work?
How do I schedule out my work? Yeah, honestly, I don't think I'm super business savvy with this. I'm trying to get better, and with time, I'm getting better. I have a calendar that I keep, and I just try to keep track of. I have like a client list, and I keep track of when they asked for it, and I keep track of who has a deadline. A lot of people have been really patient and just say whenever you can get to it. Especially if I say, I have a handful of clients that need something. They'll say, okay, take your time, just get back in touch with me when you're ready. And so
Mhm.
for the most part, most people that I've made for are people that I know through, somehow.
Mhm.
But I've had a few strangers that have contacted me and that I have made pieces for. But for the most part, most people are really patient and realize that it does take a good amount of time for me to finish these projects. They're really time consuming and pretty tedious. So
Mhm.
I try my best to schedule it out, but yeah, time management, I'm working on that all the time.
If you figure out the secret, please share it with the rest of us.
I will. Deal.
As you can well attest to, my time management skills are lacking, as in I double booked you yesterday. So
I totally get it.
I'm like, oh, I need an assistant, like for real.
Yeah.
How are clients finding you? Is it word of mouth? Is it social media? Like, how do you obtain most of your clients?
It has been all Instagram and Facebook. Yeah. I don't have a web page yet. I keep trying to talk my husband into making me a web page. But he's got other priorities, I guess. But yeah, just Instagram and Facebook. It's been really pretty incredible to the outreach that I've had. So I met a lot of people through serving tables. That was kind of another really benefit of that, I think. So I've had a lot of clients that have come through that, like just knowing people just by having met them. So
when it comes to lumber, you said you started using barnwood and stuff like that. Are you still trying to like source a lot of what you work with, like through those like Craigslist and stuff like that?
I got really, really lucky. I was using all fencing and barnwood for my initial projects, and then I had a local furniture maker contact me. So, well, okay. First off, I have a couple friends that are contractors also, so they have given me wood over the years. Some fencing, but some like really fancy wood. Like my friend TJ, he was building a really big bar, and he was using like some really nice like what is it called, black limba. And he gave me a ton of it. Like he gave all of their cutoffs from this bar, which I've been still using. I've had that probably a year and a half. And then I had another local furniture maker, Patrick with Monkey House. He uses mostly black walnut and mahogany, and he gives me all of his cutoffs. So like all of this wood there, I have tons of it. It's just all of his cutoffs and his scraps. So he gives me all of that, and because what I'm doing uses a lot of small pieces, I can really utilize that. So everything that I get is, for the most part, free to me. I do have to buy some, the backing and stuff, and sometimes I have to buy a little bit of lumber, but for the most part, what I use is somebody else's scraps, which is for me really nice because I'm an environmentalist too, and I do kind of hate that cutting down trees,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's awesome because I have found, I end up with like buckets and buckets of scrap wood, and I don't actually do a lot with my scrap wood, unless I'm using it to like as a jig in a jig or something like that. Um, but I find it like I'm like I can't just throw it away.
Yeah.
Because the same thing, it's like I just don't. I want to be conscientious about like using it. Um, and I have done more research to find out about like how to be more conscientious about just like respectful to the environment and the type of materials to use, and learning that like the big benefit of trees, right, is they remove carbon from our atmosphere, but when they decay they release that carbon back into the atmosphere. And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, let's see how long we can, like how many uses we can get out of this before
Yeah.
that happens, type thing.
Exactly.
So I think that's awesome, you get to use scraps. Do you, I mean, is there any level of like color type stuff you're trying to work with when you're creating your pieces, like the wood grain color and stuff, uh specifically because you're making landscape, so
Yeah. So I have started using, well, I started using a while ago Rubio monocoat for
mm-hmm,
any of the colors that I'm using. Other than that, I use like Minwax stains.
mm-hmm,
Um, I just use their oil stains, and they've worked really well for me because most of what I do, because it is landscape, I'm trying to get natural hues.
mm-hmm,
And so I use for this, like the sky and the water and trees, I use the Rubio monocoat, which has worked out really well. I love how their product like lets the wood grain shine through really well.
mm-hmm,
And it's worked out, especially on the skies, because that wood grain like looks like clouds kind of. And
mm-hmm,
it's, so for coloring, that's what I've done. I've used a little bit of spray paint. Like I said, my husband does murals, so he's got an incredible collection of spray paint. So that's always available to me too, which is
mm-hmm,
nice.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only used I mean, I use color in like all of my stuff for the most part. So, and I use dyes a lot, but I have tried the Rubio. They sent me like just like a sample of their different colors and stuff to work with, and
Yeah.
that's taken me quite a ways. A little bit goes a long way with
Yeah.
their stuff.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
What's the typical size of your pieces?
Most of them are probably in like the 2 foot by 4 foot range. Most of
Okay.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. And are you, I mean, besides the mountain, so are you cutting out just like how many pieces do you think you cut out to go into a piece that size?
It's usually about 150 pieces. It varies, but the last few projects have been, I as I've progressed and like found more of my process and gained more confidence in my process,
Mm-hmm.
they've gotten bigger and more, like I've been able, like I want to do more detail, and
Mm-hmm.
I want the mountain pieces to look like they come in this way and in this way, and then so
Mm-hmm.
using the grain to do that has been, yeah. But like I said, I like scroll sawing and I like sanding, so it hasn't been too bad. I like it.
Do you just glue it all onto the backing
I
in a
do.
big, like you said, a big puzzle type?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have to lay out the outline on the backing?
Yeah. So behind the mountain pieces, I always paint black so that
Mm-hmm.
the like the lines and cracks between them don't show through. So it's a process. I have to lay all the pieces down, and like trace around the outline, or like trace around the outline maybe with carbon paper initially. Kind of depends on what the project is. But and then I paint the black in there, and then I take all the pieces off and I paint the black, and then I'll paint the sky, and then I'll lay them back on and get them all arranged exactly how I want them, and then pick them up individually, like really carefully, put glue on, and put it back very carefully, and so it's it's a really delicate, tedious process, but just glue. I was in some of the geometric pieces, I definitely was using brad nailer too, but for the most part I just used wood glue.
So do you finish the individual wood pieces before you glue it on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's another step in it, is I put them all together, and then I kind of decide how I want the colors to be and how I want all the hues to come together. And so I'll pick them up individually and stain them and set them back down. And, so it is, I take apart the puzzle and put it back together about 4 times altogether throughout the process. But.
Today's sponsor is Rasp and File Designs. Rasp and File was created to give new life to old things and create spaces that feel timeless, unique, and warm. Your home and business should be your sanctuary, a place of solace, and your personal piece of art. The owner and woodworker behind Rasp and File Designs is Lauren Matthews, and you can follow along and find out more information on Instagram. Just look up Rasp Filed Designs, or on the internet at rfdesigns.squarespace.com. How do you figure out pricing? This whole process sounds like a lot of time.
It's so hard. Pricing is definitely the hardest part about the business side of it. It's really hard. People ask me my pricing, and I always get anxiety. I hate this question, but I know they have to ask.
Right.
It's hard. I'm at this point, I'm trying to guesstimate how long it's going to take me to do a project. And it's usually about 6 full days of work. If I have, if I'm really putting my head down and giving it a full day of work. Most of them take about that long. They always take a little bit longer than I think, but so I'm trying to get it to where I'm making like $35 an hour. But yeah, I don't know. Pricing is tough. I've kind of set a baseline of what the lowest that I'll take at this point. And my dad is really encouraging. So he always says, you got to price it right where it's just a little bit uncomfortable for them. You've hit the sweet spot. It's just a little uncomfortable for them. It's a little more than they thought, but they'll pay it, Right. So I'm trying to find that sweet spot. I've quoted some people and they just ghost me. And I know that I charge more than probably what some other people do, but I also think that I really, I put the work into it, and it does take the time. So it's hard to price it out. Some people really, really understand and they get it. They know how much time goes into it. And some people are like, you can do that on a CNC in a day, why are you charging that? So.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your responses to people who say that? Do you explain? Do you tell them?
Most people don't say it's too expensive. They just ghost me. They just don't. But, yeah, I've had I haven't done craft shows or something, stuff like that. People. I know that other makers have struggled with people saying that's too expensive, and it's usually when they do craft fairs and but I haven't done that, so I really haven't run into that a whole lot. I just, like I said, most people just are okay, I'm not. Totally ghost me and don't say anything at all. But I have tried to in some of my posts explain that it is a really long process and that I'm putting the work in, and it takes a lot. All together, planning it out takes time. Getting the print made takes time. Getting all the materials, it just, yeah. Right. Some people get it and some people don't. That's okay.
Yeah, have you struggled at all when it's you give a price and either they ghost you, or if they do say it's too much, do you ever get that inkling to oh, I should lower the price?
Oh, for sure. My immediate inkling, if I don't hear back in the first 5 minutes, I'm oh, should I just say, well, I put them down? My husband's no, just leave it there and see what they say, and usually it'll take a couple days, and then they'll come back and they'll be well, that was a little more than what I was expecting, but let's go ahead and do it. But yeah, I think that is kind of the sweet point in it. It is finding that place. I definitely maybe have overquoted a little bit to a couple of people, and so you just learn that. Like that's just part of the business that you have to learn is pricing is hard. I think it's especially hard for women because I do think that like we kind of undervalue our time and we're taught to be like nice and like accommodating, and so like I said, yeah, your initial instinct is kind of be like, oh, like if that doesn't fit your budget, that like just let me know, I'll take installments, right. Or I can drop the price, or I'm getting to the point where I'm confident enough to say this is my price and I can't really go under that. It's taken some time, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. I will say still to this day, I have never charged enough for my time.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
One being like a big reason is just because I always underestimate the amount of time it is going to take me. Like I really need to start just when I estimate it, just automatically at least doubling it, if not tripling the amount of time that I think. So that's for me, honestly, the biggest part is like I generally ask, the amount I want to make for the time that I estimated.
Yeah.
However, I can never meet that estimated time. So that's where it's like I never really, like I pretty much always end up working for like minimum wage type money by the time it's all said and done.
I did that on a lot of projects. I did one project in particular that like I cried at the end. I didn't even post it because I didn't want anybody else to ask me for something similar. It was terrible. I did like a river table for a bar top, and then I built the bar and I built a desk next to it, and like I way undercharged it. Like I didn't know how much epoxy costs. I was so surprised at how much the epoxy cost, and then so I had to buy the materials for that project. Yep. And I just way underquoted it. I think I made less than $1 an hour on that project, and I just bawled at the end of it. I was like,
Yep.
Yeah, I will not do that again. Yes. I learned that lesson the hard way for sure.
Yeah, that is for real the struggle. And so as time has gone on, I learned to like adjust numbers, right? Like for example, 2 years ago, I sold a set of carved bar stools where the seats were carved, the bases were metal. Sold them through a local interior designer. And at the time I thought I was overcharging, but the interior designer takes like a 30% commission right off the top. And so like I had to charge more than I normally would have, just because I was like, well, I have to make something.
Yeah.
And something happened with the seat. And so the client wants like a new seat made. And so, they're reaching back out to me and how much for the new seat. And I tell them the price, and they're like, we almost paid that for the entire stool. And I said, yeah, I've learned the value of my time. And so if you want me to make you a new seat, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to. It's hard. It is a hard thing to do. It's very hard, but you just have to do it. Like I'm forcing myself to become more comfortable with asking for what my time is really worth. So
do you find any struggle with like I think sometimes, my pricing locally is like seen as super high, whereas in comparison, like if I was selling these pieces where I think they would easily sell, like on the coast, on either coast, like I don't think anybody would bat an eye about these prices.
Totally. Yeah, so that's funny that you brought that up. I was actually just thinking about that the other day. People locally do tend to have more of a struggle with the price. And I was thinking, like, is this an Idaho thing? Because my friend TJ, who's a contractor, said that he has struggled with that. They moved here like, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. That's probably more. But anyways, he has said as a contractor, pricing here has been a lot harder because people are like, oh, I could get it for cheaper. And, it's like, if you want a product that is quality and, then you're going to have to pay the price. But Like I've had a couple of people from California contact me and I give them the price and they don't bat an eye. Like,
No.
they're like, that seems cheap. It's like,
right.
oh, okay, well, good to go.
Yeah. I think absolutely. And I always struggle because, like, what I make, I mean, you make big pieces, and I can imagine shipping has got to be pretty decent. Shipping it to California, it's got to be a decent price. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really weird. My first piece that I ever shipped I shipped to my cousin in Ohio, and it was $300 to ship it. And then I had another piece that, like the big buffalo piece that I have, it was 3 feet by 3 feet. And it was going to cost like $350 to ship to San Diego. And that piece was for my husband's sister's husband. And we ended up they bought us a plane ticket, and I just took it as a carrier, like a bag.
Yeah.
And it was cheaper that way because it was like $75 to do that.
Right.
This is the $350. So she just paid for us to fly there instead, because then we got a trip out of it too. But recently I sent another project down to California, and when I went online and did it through UPS, it was $65. It was like, why is it so much cheaper?
Right.
And so the guy who's a furniture maker that gives me all of his scrapbook, he said, yeah, go online, set up an account. It's way cheaper if you just do it online. And I was like, oh, okay. So I tried it that way instead of just going into the UPS store. And it was like way cheaper. So I don't know.
Do you have to have like the printer and stuff though for all of the?
No, I just had the label on my phone, like, and they just have a barcode that they scanned, and then they print the label and put it on. Like, I boxed it myself and did all of that. But
I'm so gonna need to check that out.
So, yeah, that was my last project, and I have no idea why it would be so much cheaper. I guess just because then you save time for them, but it was significantly cheaper.
Yeah, because I had like the last wood and resin bowl that I made, that had been like commissioned. When I sold it to the client, she lived in Iowa, and so I was like, well, shipping would be free, or included with the price. And then she moved to Washington State. And so I was like, okay, and that's fine. I still said like shipping's included because that's the deal we had made, and that was fine. And I took too long on it anyways. But when I took it in and I had boxed it and everything, something that I had sold for a little under $200, the shipping was $50.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, yes, it was like a decent weight to the bowl and everything, but I'm like, it's still just a bowl, and I boxed it. And I took it to UPS at that time because with the pandemic, I just don't always feel comfortable going into our post office because it's super tiny and all of that stuff. So I'm like, I'll go to the UPS store. I just feel more comfortable like going into that space. And I'm like, but $50, like, that was like a quarter, like more than a quarter of the price that I got for this thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I've had to learn to say, quote people what I'm going to charge for my time, and then shipping is, in addition to, not included in that price. So whatever the shipping is, hoping that the client just realizes that it's going to be fairly expensive. And yeah,
honestly, that's what's caused me to pause as far as like looking to sell my pieces beyond locally, just because a carved log table is probably weighs 20 plus pounds, and I'm like, I can't, like, I don't even want to imagine how much it would cost to ship that.
You'd probably have to go through UPS freight for that. And like I said, I'm just learning this all too. But Patrick, who's helped me out, he does all furniture. So he does big pieces, like he does consoles. And he said the majority of people that he sells to are in California. And so I'm like, what are you paying for shipping? And he said, well, I don't pay for it. It's like my clients pay for it. And like, I just, he charges them his price and then says, shipping is on you basically. And but I mean, they don't bat an eye. He's like, people don't even think twice about it. It's just part of the deal. So again, I think that that's kind of, he's more established. And I think, I hate to bring the sex thing into, but I think that men can ask for a price and it's a little bit easier and they're taken serious a little bit more. And
I don't think it's wrong to bring gender into it, because I think the client on the other end thinks, to your point, I don't know if it's that they don't question it. I think they probably do question it on some level, but the fact of like actually responding with the question of like, are you kidding me, or like whatever, I think they're more likely to do that back to a female than to a male.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
Yeah. Well, we're like at the end of our time.
Really?
Yeah. So I want to make sure to give you another chance to let people know where they can find you on social media and how to follow along with you.
Okay. Instagram. It's just Sarah.Sawdust, and is it Sarah.Sawdust 208? I don't even know. That's horrible.
And I think it's Sarah.Sawdust.
Yeah, you're right. Yes. Gosh, I should know that. Sarah.Sawdust on Instagram, and then it's Sarah.Sawdust on Facebook as well. But,
yes, awesome.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, I'll include the links for those in the show notes so people can follow along with you. And yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed it. All right. Again, that was Sarah of Sarah.Sawdust. I will include the links on how you can follow along with her in the description for the episode. So just check that out on whatever podcast app you're listening on, or down in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. I am also working on and getting very close to being caught up and putting the show notes up on my website. So that would just be freemanfurnishings.com/podcast. And so then the links would be there as well. If you enjoyed this week's episode and all of the past episodes, please remember to hit that subscribe, like, comment button. Head on over to iTunes, leave a 5-star review. All of that helps the algorithms know that not only do you like the podcast, but others like you might enjoy it as well. Make sure you follow along with the podcast over on Instagram. That's just @MakerMomPodcast. And share with a friend about something cool that you learned about this week's maker. Share about the podcast. Make sure you tag me if you happen to share about it on Instagram. And I really just enjoy hearing about people enjoying the podcast. Head on over to Patreon. Check out joining the tribe over there. That's just patreon.com/MakerMomPodcast. There's a few different tier levels that you can join up with that come with different merch, maybe a t-shirt or a mug or a sticker or all of the above. And no matter what level you sign up for, you get access to additional content, which also includes live podcast episodes where if you're a patron, then you get access to the Zoom link so you can hop on the Zoom while I'm doing the interview. And at the end of the interview, get to ask your own questions of the maker. So that's kind of fun. If that sounds super interesting, go check out patreon.com/MakerMomPodcast. You can also just check out swag. I've got the Wonder Women tees that I'm wearing today, along with the OG, as it would be, for the Maker Mom logo, and all kinds of goodies over there. T-shirts, mugs, just all kinds of goodies. When I am not making podcasts, you can find me designing and making furniture and other home decor over at freemanfurnishings.com. And pretty much at Freeman Furnishings across all the social media. So that's YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and Pinterest. And did I say Facebook? All of it. I'm active on the daily, though, on Instagram and TikTok. So check that out. I'm really diving into power carving these days, so you can see me up to those shenanigans there. And find me, follow me, say hi, tell me you found me through the podcast, all of that good jazz. It's Wednesday. Hope you're having a great week, and I will see you all on Friday for a Maker Mom episode.
Ready for you, and the wonders you can